yet.
At George M. Steinbrenner Field in Tampa, Florida, getting ready for a little more spring training baseball. And Juan Soto certainly always attracting autograph seekers. Look at Juan, kind enough to sign for all the youngsters. As we welcome you to Yankees spring training presented by Montefiore Einstein. It's the Yankees against the Phillies from George M. Steinbrenner Field in Tampa, Florida. This game going to be slightly delayed, a 1:25 first pitch. As you can see, the tarp is off, was on a few moments ago. We'll take a look at today's key pitching matchup. Carlos Rodon going for the Yankees. We know every start he makes is going to be one of interest leading into this season after what he went through last year. Matt Strahm goes for the Phillies. And as we said, we're slightly delayed here, a first pitch time of 1:25. You can see the ominous clouds in the area, so the tarp was on the field for a little while, was just pulled off, and so the field just going to take a little bit longer to get ready. But Ryan Ruocco, Jack Curry, Justin Shackle with you. Jack gives us a chance to talk about today's starting pitcher, Carlos Rodon. Now, for a player who certainly has a lot of established major league success, there's a higher level of attention on his spring training starts than maybe he's been used to in a while, simply because of the year that he's coming off of.
Yeah, 2023 was a struggle. He has acknowledged that. He has talked about that. He has spoken about having to come out this season and be a much better pitcher, be someone the Yankees can rely on. They signed him to a 6-year, $162 million contract before the 23 season. Last year was a failure for him by his own admission. So what do you do to change those things? He came to spring training earlier. You can tell he's in better shape. He wants to change around those numbers that we're showing you right there, an ERA of almost 7. This will be his 4th spring start. We'll get into this a lot during the broadcast, Ryan, but I thought there were some encouraging signs in his last start, especially with the velocity on his fastball. That was up. And then the other part of his game, mixing it up a little bit. He's been a fastball slider pitcher, and that has been his recipe for success. That didn't work totally in New York last season. So what do you do differently? He has talked about really working hard on that cutter, and that is something he said he's going to be working on today against the Phillies.
Well, you know, you bring up that last start and the encouraging signs from it. Let's take a look at that last time out for Rodon and what you like, Jack, about what you saw.
Yeah, it was a 4-inning outing against the Red Sox, and you saw some swing and miss from him, which was a positive. You see the 3 strikeouts. He did give up the 1 run, and that was on a home run to Tristan Casas. He didn't face the Red Sox A team, but he faced the batters who the Red Sox brought, and you have to go out there and you have to figure out a way to have a level of success. I mentioned the velo. Ryan, in that game, his fastball averaged about 95. He maxed out at about 97. That was with a couple of extra days rest. Previous outing, he was about 2 miles lower in his average fastball and about 2 miles lower in the max on his fastball. So he's searching for that velocity. He's talked about it, and he told Meredith that some of the changes he made before that start were just some mechanical things about moving down the mound more efficiently. He said with those changes, he thought he was able to find the velocity he was seeking.
And Justin, I know you got a chance to speak with Matt Blake about Rodon.
Yeah, Ryan, Matt Blake told me that he wants to see Rodon follow up and build on from that last start where he had more crispness and more velocity to that fastball. He feels Carlos has overall done a good job keeping his delivery together this spring, which was a priority for him. But Blake also told me that with Rodon's pitches, fastball command, it's getting the slider where he wants it to with 2 strikes. And as far as the secondary pitches, the changeup and the cutter, it's where Rodon will work those pitches in to hitters. Blake wants to see how he's able to apply those extra parts to his arsenal that he's been building on. And he told Carlos, get in a rhythm. See where they fit as he's attacking hitters instead of just featuring those pitches.
That's an interesting concept, Jack, right? That it's not just about, hey, I have to throw this pitch. I need to make it a part of the arsenal. No, where does it actually fit within a sequence in a place where you feel like, hey, it can be a weapon. You're not just showing it for the sake of showing it.
It's the art of pitching, right, guys? It's about not wanting to take away from your strengths. His strengths are fastball, slider, and we showed the numbers earlier. He threw fastball slider 90% of the time when he was that pitcher in 21 and 22, but now he's been forced to make some changes. Our John Flaherty and our David Cohn have talked about, sure, fastball up in the zone and a back foot or a backdoor slider. When that system is working perfectly, Carlos Rodon has shown he can be incredibly successful that way. But when that is not working to the level that you need it to work, as Justin just talked about, okay, where are you working in that changeup? Where are you working in that cutter? And not just throwing it for show, but throwing it because that's the pitch you think is going to help get you an out, get you some weak contact, or at the very least, remind a hitter that, wow, he threw me a cutter there. I was sitting fastball on the outside corner, and he came inside with a cutter. So you're putting that thought in the hitter's head.
All right, plenty more on Rodon throughout the afternoon. Once again, we have a slightly delayed start, a 1:25 first pitch. We have a little news on Aaron Judge from Justin on the other side of this break here on Yes. The fans getting ready for baseball in Tampa after the Tar puts on the field. 1:25 first pitch this afternoon. Ryan Rucco, Jack Curry, Justin Shackle with you. We'll take a look at today's injury report brought to you by Montefiore Einstein, the official hospital of the New York Yankees. What do you got for us, Shaq?
Well, guys, Aaron Judge was seen with his teammates out on the main field here at George M. Steinbrenner Field, stretching before BP, also working out with some fly ball drills in center field. He was scheduled to hit on a backfield in a group that consisted of himself, Giancarlo Stanton, Luis Torrens, and Jose Trevino. Those three did go out to hit on the backfield. Judge stayed behind, then later emerged to shag some balls in BP. The Yankees say that Judge has been hitting off a machine and has been doing some tee and toss the past 3 days indoors. So we'll see if that continued when we talk with Aaron Boone later on in today's game.
All right, we're looking forward to that conversation. Justin, also, before we get back to the conversation about Judge, Jack, we saw DJ LeMahieu on that injury report as well. And right now, LeMahieu in a day-to-day situation after fouling that ball off his foot a couple games ago.
Right, I covered that game the other day with Bob Lorenz, and you could see when DJ fouled this ball off, it took him a few seconds to get up eventually, and what an odd thing to foul a ball off your back foot in the batter's box. He did get up. He did complete the at-bat. The positive for the Yankees is they still have 10 days left before opening day. But just as Justin was detailing what's going on with Judge, you want to make sure that all of your starting players, all of your A guys are ready for that opener against the Astros.
How about the LeMahieu situations, the Shaq?
Yeah, guys, the x-rays were negative on that right foot for LeMahieu, and I saw him walking around normal around the facility yesterday while the rest of the team was in Fort Myers, but reportedly still sore. Aaron Boone hoping, again, only a day-to-day issue for DJ.
Justin, we know the availability that teams have now with hitting indoors. You can get on a pitching machine that can simulate who Framber Valdez is, so I'm sure Judge is getting some work in. How have the Yankees discussed the amount of at-bats perhaps that he'd like to get leading up to opening day? Because I know it's different with every player, but Paul O'Neill used to talk about liking to get locked in about that final week, making sure he had a week's worth of games heading into opening day.
Yeah, that's the key question to ask, and I was trying to do it when Judge was shagging those fly balls on the backfield, but he declined to speak with reporters. But that is the main question at this point. How many at-bats do you feel you need before you start getting going with the regular season? Now, Aaron Boone said hitting indoors, like you mentioned, is virtually there's really no difference between hitting indoors and outdoors with the high velocity machine that teams work on. So I was talking with Jose Trevino about it, and again, I think it's just a preference that each individual has. He said roughly 30 at-bats for him. So, that's a player who was slowed down by an injury earlier in camp, but every player has that specific at-bat number that they need before they feel like they're ready to go. That's the key question to ask with Aaron Judge at this point.
Well, and I think, guys, that if we had been told, hey, Judge expected to hit on the backfield, and then he doesn't, and he wasn't doing anything, your antenna would really go up, right? If we didn't see him also shagging balls, if we didn't know that he was taking swings inside. But because he is, even if we're not getting to see him swinging, that obviously still is progress towards getting ready for spring training. He's still getting work in offensively in addition to what we did see defensively.
100%, Ryan. And when we just take a look at what Judge has done so far this spring, he does have 14 at-bats. So to the point that Justin just made about Trevino, there will be more at-bats in the pipeline for Aaron Judge. But you also don't want to rush at this point. This is what spring training is for, to make sure that you are ready to go, that you're in a position that your team can know you're 100% to start the season. So I think the Yankees are being smart and cautious with their most valuable player. I know Soto is on the team right now, but Aaron Judge is their most valuable player.
We'll step aside one more time here on Yes. Getting ready for a slightly delayed first pitch. Carlos Rodon will throw it at approximately 125 here on Yes. Welcome back to Yankees Spring Training, presented by Ford. Proud to be the official SUV of the New York Yankees. Get ready for the start of action at George M. Steinbrenner Field. Slightly delayed with a 125 first pitch. Anthony Volpe will be in there starting at short this afternoon. Jack, he's had a really nice spring, and it just feels like overall he could be a real difference maker this season. The lineup is bolstered enough that he doesn't have to be outstanding for the team to produce offensively and be great, but it feels like, you look at the team and say, who's an ascending player who could really make an impact? He's one.
And you see the numbers right there for the spring. They're terrific numbers. He has more hits than any Yankee during spring training. And I agree with you, Ryan. Of course, Soto is going to be a massive difference. A healthy Rizzo, big difference. A healthy Judge for a year, another huge difference. But I was talking with Jim Duquette today, the former general manager of the Mets, and one of the topics we discussed was, how about the bottom three in the Yankee lineup? It's probably going to be Verdugo, then either Trevino or Wells, and then Volpe. That's actually a very feisty and potentially very productive bottom three. The Yankees didn't have that last year. The Yankees had a stagnant offense. They were bottom 5 in the major leagues in a lot of offensive categories. I think Anthony has made some noticeable changes heading into this season. I've talked to him about some of his swing adjustments. We'll get into that during the game. He also looks stronger and thicker. And when I mentioned that to him, he said, thank you, first of all. But then he said, I'm the same weight. But he definitely looks like he's gotten stronger.
Shaq?
Yeah, Saturday, those hits that he was slugging the other way into right center field, they looked just different. Also had 2 more hits, one up the middle, but the crispness in his swing and the velocity off the bat really stood out. And a scout told me after the game, there are not a lot of players who could have handled what Anthony Volpe went through as a rookie shortstop for the New York Yankees last year. I thought that stood out.
Yeah, absolutely. The makeup is a 10 out of 10. The dedication, the fitness level, the diet, the sleep. He's obsessed with it all. And very excited to see him in his second full season in the big leagues. We'll come back with lineups, first pitch in baseball coming up next here on Yes. Yankees Spring Training on Yes is brought to you in part by Hyundai. Get away with great deals on every new Hyundai only at the Hyundai Getaway Sales Event today. Visit buyhyundai.com today. By the Tunnel to Towers Foundation. Help America's heroes. Donate $11 a month at T2T.org. By FanDuel. Make every moment more. And by Acura. Precision crafted performance. The Yankees Getting ready to go now after a slight rain delay. 1:25 estimated first pitch time. And you know what? It's almost 1:25. So let's take a look at today's starting lineup for the Phillies, brought to you by your local tri-state Volkswagen dealer. Brandon Marsh leading off. You see the productive 2023 season he had. Johan Rojas, followed by Cody Clemens, Alec Bohm, Garrett Stubbs, Derek Hall, Scott Kingery, David Dahl, and Cal Stevenson round out the Phillies starting lineup. And for the Yankees, in a moment, as Juan Soto prepares to play, it'll be Carlos Rodon who will take the mound. How about Joe Torre out there in uniform exchanging the lineup cards?
Just a terrific sight to see Joe in uniform in the Yankee dugout again. We had Aaron Boone on during our last broadcast on Saturday, and he said that he was going to maybe find a way for Joe to make a pitching change, Ryan. Did the lineup card today, and he gets a nice ovation.
It's just so awesome seeing him in uniform. It really is. And, of course, Joe was the manager when the Yes Network started. How about, Jack, 22 years ago tomorrow?
Pretty amazing to think back to those days. I was working for the New York Times at the time, but there was a level of excitement about the Yes Network and all that it could bring. I know we're going to talk about that throughout today's broadcast, but sure, Joe Torre was there. We could go down the roster of players who were part of the team then, Jeter, Mariano, etc. Just quite a legacy that Yes has built.
And a testament to it that we have so many people who were there behind the scenes then who are today as well. Hey, speaking of people who were there then, Bernie Williams hanging out. Willie Randolph, too, Yankee royalty in that dugout this afternoon.
I think it has to mean something for whether you're a young player or even if you're someone like Aaron Judge, who's more established. When you see a Torre, when you see a Bernie Williams or a Willie Randolph, it's a reminder of who the Yankees are, who they have been, what those men have helped the franchise accomplish, and what you are trying to accomplish in 2024 and beyond.
Yeah, there's something just special about the caliber of player and person that you have in the franchise's history, but also how often they come back and they give back and they're around and they stay attached to the organization. And that is rare, and it's something the Yankees celebrate.
They absolutely should celebrate it as they do. Their history is like the history of no other team in baseball. All that they have accomplished, all of the winning, all of the Hall of Famers. And as I said, these players right now who are in the dugout, they're trying their best to contribute to that and make themselves part of that. And by the way, I loved covering Bernie. I have to go off on a little personal tangent here, but Bernie was just a guy you watched blossom from who he was when he first got to the major leagues, and you had teammates describing him as someone who looked like he was just finding his way, and then who he became for the Yankees. Middle of the order switch hitter with power. And just so important to those successful teams.
Yeah, and unbelievably clutch. It's so interesting if you ask Yankees fans about who they'd want up in a spot from those teams. There's obviously a lot of great options, but I wouldn't be surprised if he was #1 on the list for who you'd want at the plate in a huge spot. You think about all of his moments throughout those postseasons. Just incredible.
And Jeter gets a lot of credit, Ryan, for handling New York and navigating his way through New York. Bernie did that too. Bernie did it in a slightly different fashion. Jeter was more available, but has even talked post-career about how he was potentially or intentionally vanilla. Bernie has told me on occasion, I just tried to stay out of the way. I didn't want to talk. I wanted to make myself go through those New York waters without any turbulence. And now you've got Bernie Williams, Yankee center fielder, giving some advice to Aaron Judge. And Ryan, that speaks to exactly what we were just talking about.
Yeah, there's something cool about seeing that, right? Bernie Williams working with Aaron Judge in center field. And we know there's tidbits of knowledge and experience that you can only be aware of after having gone through it the way somebody like Bernie has.
I haven't played center field since high school, so I do not want to even. I'm going to guess.
Okay.
Definitely, you could see by what Bernie was showing him. It was something about the placement of your glove and navigating, perhaps, whether it's the sun at Steinbrenner Field or the sun elsewhere. But you could see Judge locked in on the little tidbit of advice that Bernie was passing on there.
So Rodon about ready to trot out there and get this game underway. A slightly delayed first pitch after there was rain in the area and the tarp on the field. Around 1 o'clock, they finally got it off, got the field ready to go, and we are about ready as well.
Going to gloat a little bit here on Yes's behalf, Ryan. You talked about the history and the legacy. One thing we've been doing this spring training is when the pitcher warms up at the start of the game, we've got a shot from right behind, and I'm absolutely infatuated with it because you get a chance to see the ball.
Yeah, here you go.
And it's Hugh Boyle, our cameraman, who is working down there right now in Tampa, and I love this shot. I love anything that brings us closer to the action, and I'm got to believe viewers feel the same way.
One of my first assignments ever, I believe, was with Hugh back in the day. And you see Hugh, bringing you that outstanding view of the field as the Yankees trot out to their positions, and Rodon walks out to the mound right into your living room.
30-year-old lefty. It's year 2 for him, and he has said it's got to be a much better year.
See the numbers from last season for Rodon. Let's check out the Hyundai Pitchers scouting report.
For Rodon, Ryan, it's about pumping up the velo, pump up the velocity. His last outing, fastball averaged about 95. He maxed out at over 97. That was 2 miles better than his previous start. He needs to live there, creating options. We know the fastball and the slider are his best pitches, but what are your other options when you need another pitch? The cutter is a possibility. The changeup and the curveball. I envision he's going to throw a lot of cutters today. He told Meredith that after his last start. And then filling some of the void. Garrett Cole, the reigning Cy Young Award winner and the Yankee ace, will not start the season with the Yankees. We don't know his timetable yet. We don't know when he is returning. It's incumbent upon the other Yankee starters to fill some of that void. And Carlos Rodon, if he can be the pitcher he was in the 2 years before he became a Yankee, he can help fill some of that void.
So Rodon taking his warm-up tosses. Let's take a look at the defense behind him. The Yankees with Alex Verdugo in left. The Gold Glove winner Trent Grisham in center. Juan Soto in right. On the left side of the infield, it'll be Kevin Smith fighting for a roster spot alongside the starting shortstop Anthony Volpe. Gleyber Torres at second. Oswaldo Cabrera gets the reps at first today, and Austin Wells is behind the plate. So a little later than projected, but at about 1:32, here we go. Ready for baseball finally as Juan Soto checks his defensive positioning. And Brandon Marsh digs in. The first pitch from Rodon is just a tad low, 1-0.
Second straight start, Ryan, that Wells will be catching Rodon, so be interesting to see if this is a tandem that the Yankees use during the season.
The 1-0. Yeah, one of the other interesting parts about that dynamic, Jack, is, you know, sometimes even if you have catchers who are going to split playing time, what's going to determine it may just be the comfort of the pitchers, right? But when one hits righty and one hits lefty, that adds a completely different factor into the equation on who you might want to play behind the plate on a given day.
It sure does. When we've talked about that starting catcher position, we talk about Trevino and Wells. Well, the Astros announced that Framber Valdez will be their opening day starter, so the presumption would be that Trevino will be behind the plate for the Yankees on opening day.
With Valdez being a left-handed pitcher. 2-2 here on Marsh. Rodon coming off a strong start. Last time out, went 4 innings, allowed just 1 hit, 1 run. The 2-2. With with a slider, painted the outside corner. One away.
Yeah, this is who Carlos Rodon can be when he's at his best. Nice job of framing that pitch by Wells also. That pitch was right on the outside corner. Wells might have tucked it back a little bit, but perfect location by Rodon to get the first out.
There's a strike. So Rojas 0-1. Rojas drives that in the air. Verdugo takes it as Grisham makes the catch in left center for the second out. And a little laugh shared from Grisham and Verdugo.
Grisham, the owner of 2 Gold Gloves. I think we're going to see a lot of him in center field this year, Ryan. One more look at it as you talked about.
It's a pretty good fake.
It was a good fake by Verdugo. Good imposter, impersonating the guy who caught the ball while Grisham was catching it.
Oh, and 2. Rodon working quickly here. Looks sharp early. See the numbers this spring for Cody Clemens, who has played really well in his 12 games.
So this is a good test for Rodon. You're ahead 0-2 against the lefty hitter. What's your best put away pitch right here? Are you going outside slider again like you did against Marsh? It was. That's where it was supposed to be. You saw Wells setting up outside. The pitch ended up inside, and Clemens spoils it, but you want to get in the dugout as quickly as possible, and this would be a really quick inning for Rodon if he can dispatch Clemens here.
The 0-2 elevates the fastball, changes the eye level. 1-2. Tipped into the glove, or did it hit the ground? It bounced. So the son of Rogers stays alive. Still 1-2. Of course, we know all of Rogers' sons or children's names start with K. 1-2. Oh, right into the crowd, Mike.
Clemens hanging in there. Also, Rodon with good velocity so far in this first inning. We've seen a lot of 95s.
The 1-2. Swing and a miss. 95 again there, Jack. A 1-2-3 first with 2 strikeouts for Carlos Rodon, looking very sharp. Volpe, Soto, and Torres coming up next. Let's take a look at today's starting lineup for the Yankees, brought to you by your local Tri-State Volkswagen dealer. Volpe, Soto, and Torres at the top of the order. Then it's Stan, Verdugo, and Wells. Grisham, Kevin Smith, and Oswaldo Cabrera rounds out the Yankees starting lineup. Matt Strahm on the mound for the Phillies. Strong numbers a season ago as we check out the Hyundai pitcher scouting report.
Strahm is Mr. Versatility, Ryan. He can start, he can relieve. It can be long relief or short relief. The Phillies used him in a variety of roles last year. He had a solid season for them. Lefty killer. Lefties hit only .209 against him and staying injury-free. Of course, that's vital for every pitcher, but he had been on the IL for 6 consecutive seasons before going injury-free last season.
Anytime you get that out of a pitcher, like that. Can break the trend. 1-0 on Volpe. talked about it, Jack. He's had such a strong spring. 368 batting average. The swing change is noticeable. Leveling out that path through the zone after last year it turned into noticeable uppercut.
Yeah, Aaron Boone talked about that in spring training, Ryan. You see what he did against pitches in the upper third of the zone. Average under 200, the slugging barely above 300. So the Yankees felt he was collapsing on his backside last season. So you're having trouble covering as much of the plate as you should. So what he's doing now is the swing is more on plane, and he's getting more plate coverage. And Boone, who obviously watched every at-bat that Volpe had last season, said he came into spring and right away he noticed that Anthony was definitely getting more coverage in the strike zone.
Strom just misses there, and it's 3-2 on Volpe.
Fastball, sinker, slider, cutter. Once in a while, a changeup from Strom.
You mentioned it before, too, Jack. The weight might be the same. He looks stronger, without a doubt.
Definitely thicker in the upper body. John Flaherty, our colleague, mentioned that right away.
The 3-2. That one is in there for strike three. Volpe down looking for the first out.
Here, Strom thought he had a third strike call on a similar pitch in this at-bat. He does get the call right there.
Here's Juan Soto facing Strom. Swinging first pitch, chops it weakly to first. That stays fair for the second out as Hall taps the bag. Take a look at the Phillies defense. Marsh in left, Rojas in center, Cal Stevenson in right, Baum and Kingery on the left side, Clements and Hall on the right side, and Stubbs behind the plate. On Torres. Torres also has had a really good spring. See the batting average, the production. A guy like Torres is probably in a place of, okay, I'm ready. Get me to the start of the season.
100%. We spoke with Justin earlier about Judge being sidelined and how many at-bats do you need. Gleyber Torres feels pretty happy with his production so far. He's obviously a free agent at the end of this year. This is his walk year. I asked him what he would like to see in his future. He said he'd love to stay with the Yankees. Brian Cashman was asked about that. He said, listen, he's our second baseman for right now. Cashman, the GM, wasn't looking too far into the future, but Torres really solid last year, especially when Judge was down. A lot of times he was the mainstay in the Yankee offense.
The 1-2. Just missed. 2-2 on Torres. Yeah, his season probably would have gotten noticed more had it been a better year overall for the Yankees, because it really was a strong offensive outputting from Torres.
Cut his strikeouts by about 30, increased his walks by about 30, and when you aren't chasing bad pitches and you're putting yourself in better counts, you've just made yourself an infinitely better hitter, and that's what Gleyber Torres did.
Here's the 3-2. Ball four as Torres, there you go, works the walk.
A lot of spring trainings, Ryan. You interview players and you talk to them and they say they're working on X or Y or Z, and then once the season starts they never actually execute that. Give Gleyber Torres a lot of credit, because last spring he said he needed to be less aggressive, essentially needed to have better plate discipline. Nothing wrong with being aggressive.
Stand aggressive there. Floats it into shallow right. Catch made by Stevenson for the final out of the first. We go to the second inning. Rodon back to work after a 1-2-3 top. Yankees spring training on Yes is presented by Montefiore Einstein, the official hospital of the New York Yankees. Love that shot. Top of the second inning, Carlos Rodon back to work after a 1-2-3 first. Alec Bohm rolls one to short. Volpe fumbles, recovers in time for the out.
Volpe doing a nice job keeping that ball in front of him, also knowing who was running, so even after the initial fumble, knew he had time to get the out. One more look at it. Pops up on him, keeps it in front of him, collects himself, gets the out. Reminds me of a conversation I had with him in spring training. I asked him about the way he plays shortstop at this frenetic pace. He said he really learned how to play shortstop by moving his feet, because he and his dad, when he was playing in New York City as a kid, they would go to a park on 92nd and Lexington. And Anthony said, you never knew what kind of hops you were going to get. So he said, I really had to be ready to move my feet, and that's the way he plays shortstop at such a fast pace.
This reminds me of a time where my dad was hitting me ground balls in the front yard, and I got an unexpected bad hop, and it turned into a broken nose.
Ouch.
I needed Anthony's foot speed to be able to handle it.
I don't know if Michael Volpe hit one as hard as Papa Rooks that turned into a broken nose. I did not get that revelation. I'm sorry to hear that for you. How old were you?
How old was I? I was in high school. Yeah. Our director, Mike Cooney, just said 22. No, I was still playing summer ball then, but no. I'm not sure it was ever fixed, Jack. We'll let the audience be the judge of that.
Looks perfect.
1-2 here on Garrett Stubbs. Left on left. Rodon's been elevating the fastball nicely and had pretty steady 95-mile-an-hour pop on it so far.
He has, and the slider has looked crisp. Misses down low with that one, but it is also about just making sure you have those other pitches at your disposal. We see that the velocity today, as you mentioned, just kind of right in line with his previous start.
A 3-2. Hit in the air to center field. Grisham waits. 2 down.
Obviously, Rodon knows he's not a guy who should pitch to a 7 ERA, but you do look at what he did in 21 and 22, Ryan, and if he could be some version of that for the Yankees this year as they're waiting for Cole to return, even if he's 90% of that pitcher, what a night and day change for the Yankees if he can return to who he was and the pitcher that made them sign him to that deal.
Right. It's so true, because I think because of last year, you almost get to a place of, hey, just be decent, right? And that would be a win. But of course, there's also the possibility of him returning to the excellence that we saw those 2 years and that we've seen thus far this afternoon. 6 up, 6 down for Carlos Rodon. 3 strikeouts. Hall the latest. For the second inning, Ryan Ruocco, Jack Curry, Justin Shackle with you. Alex Verdugo will lead things off, followed by Austin Wells, Trent Grisham. The new pitcher for the Phillies is Jeff Hoffman. Strom, very impressive in his 1 inning of work, and Hoffman, strong numbers a season ago. As Verdugo chops to first, 2 pitches and 1 out. Austin Wells. He's had a really strong spring, just further elevating the excitement around having his bat regularly in the lineup for the Yankees this season. You think about the ways in which the Yankee offense will be bolstered from a year ago. Obviously, you start with Soto. You think about growth from Volpe, availability from Rizzo, second half LeMahieu perhaps being that for the whole season. But you also think about this guy and what he could provide behind the plate.
Yeah, left-handed power at Yankee Stadium and a competent defensive catcher. Obviously, as Wells has been working his way to the major leagues, the scouting report on him has always been the offense is ahead of the defense. I spoke to Kevin Reese, the Yankees vice president of player development, and we're going to see Wells stare at that breaking pitch, but he said the strides that Wells has made defensively are just terrific, and that the Yankees feel, listen, you've got a guy who can both hit and play defense at the major league level. And Reese told me an interesting anecdote saying that he thinks that Wells probably has kept a bunch of tweets or a bunch of articles that doubted him defensively. So I asked Austin that, and he got a little smile, and he said, well, you get your motivation from everywhere. Didn't Tom Brady sort of get motivation from the doubters? So if there are people who are doubting you, you can use that as motivation.
Yeah, whatever works. Catches the bottom of the zone from Hoffman. Grisham wasn't so sure. 1-1.
We mentioned those 2 Gold Gloves that Grisham has, Ryan. I asked him in spring training what makes an elite center fielder, and one of the first things he talked about were the jumps. You've got to be prepared, but then you've also got to get the jump off when the ball hits the bat.
Take a look at that. Since 2020, by far and away the leader in outs above average among all outfielders.
Here it comes.
Swing and a miss. Strong inning for Hoffman. 1-2-3 go the Yanks. A couple of strikeouts. We move to the third in a scoreless game.
Everybody, I am Michael Kay, and welcome to opening day. Now, I know that it's the middle of spring training and it's not April 1st yet, but it is opening day for the YES Network, so that's pretty important.
Oh, yes, the Audi electric moment. Experience a fully electric Audi vehicle, your local Tri-State Audi dealer today. 22 years of YES. Our first broadcast March 19th of 2002, 146 Emmys in 18 years as the #1 regional sports network in the country. On the Montefiore Einstein scoreboard, no score through 2. This is a place we're all so proud to work at, Jack, and #1 reason is the culture and the people who've built it. Just every time we walk into a booth or a studio, there is a genuine and I think unique feeling of camaraderie that we have and all take pride in continuing to cultivate.
Great camaraderie, great chemistry, the YES Network family, and to see that debut for Michael for the second time in a week now, because we were privy to seeing that about a week ago when YES had a seminar and Michael gave the backstory of how John J. Filippelli, our boss, and he were going over what that opening should be and how stressed Michael was because there were so many points that he wanted to cover, and though we only showed a snippet of it, he got through it and he covered a lot of points and let everyone know what YES was going to be about, and YES has more than lived up to what Michael promised in that opening.
Michael looked terrific too, huh?
He looked great.
He's still got a great full head of hair though. Look at that. He had a nice tan working too.
He also talked about how he had been a radio play-by-play guy before that. A legion of Yankee fans know him as the TV voice, but he was a radio person making the transition.
A walk here to Kingery, the first base runner to reach for Philadelphia.
You're looking for a spot on the outside corner with your fastball. You just miss. You see in the body language, it looked as if Rodon wanted that call. Wells did try to pull it in. It's a little bit outside. Not a bad miss.
No, all of his misses today thus far have felt close or purposeful. As Verdugo hunts that one down in left center for the first out. Grisham and Verdugo have been sharing a few laughs out there in left field today. You could see the wind blowing a little bit on the backs of the jerseys. There was rain in and around the area, which delayed us. And you see the wind whipping against the flags at George M. Steinbrenner Field. There's Cal Stevenson. Just missed. It is interesting, Jack. You and I were talking about this off air, but I think interesting to bring on air as well. Just trying to discern between cutter and slider when you're dealing with a pitcher who's just throwing the cutter for the first time. Kind of got to get a feel for the difference in velocity, because so often the difference in movement can be subtle.
It can be subtle, especially he's throwing a hard slider. He's not David Cone, 3 types of sliders, and Coney would throw a Laredo with a ton of tilt. It's not a sweeper when it's coming out of Rodon's hand.
Volpe slides, shovels out at second. Nice play from the Gold Glover Anthony Volpe. 2 down.
Yeah, I think Volpe initially thought if he really hustles, there's a chance to turn 2. He collects himself, makes sure that he gets 1, and then Claver just hangs on to it. I asked Volpe the biggest difference about year 2, Ryan, and he gave the very obvious answer. Just you've done a lot of these things before, so the experiences that maybe were new last year feel more routine, feel more commonplace. And I agree with what you said earlier and what Brian Cashman said before the season even started. I think we're going to see an upsurge in Volpe's offensive performance.
Yeah. 1-0. Cracked into left. Verdugo racing back is there just on the lip of the track for the final out of the third. Carlos Rodon is not allowed a hit through 3. No score. Hey fans, the Legends of Baseball will be having their 2nd annual cruise on the Celebrity Cruises Apex departing December 7th, 2024. They'll be visiting some of the most tropical ports in the Caribbean. The Legends will include El Duque, Orlando Hernandez, Jim Leyritz, and our colleague Jeff Nelson, plus many more. This exclusive experience will include all private events, including autograph and photo sessions with the Legends. Staterooms are going fast, so be sure to visit legendsofbaseballcruise.com today. Popped up to first. Kevin Smith retired, 1 down. Dominguez, the new pitcher for Philadelphia. Sir Anthony Dominguez retires Smith. Now we'll face Oswaldo Cabrera, followed by Anthony Volpe. Cabrera skips rope, and some gentleman behind home plate says hello.
Yeah,
say hi.
Because that heat is coming from Sir Anthony. You see what Cabrera has done so far this spring. Not the numbers he was hoping for, but Dominguez average fastball 98 miles an hour. He'll also throw a slider and a changeup. And we're used to seeing Cabrera all over the field, Ryan. He's at first base today. He's never started a game at first base in the major leagues. He's played first base, but has actually never started a game there.
Spring the time to try it.
You start to look at that Yankee bench. It'll have 4 spots. We know Trent Grisham will own one of them. Whoever you deem your backup catcher, be it Trevino or Wells, gets the other one. And then there are 2 spots. Cabrera, with his versatility, heading into spring, you would have believed that he was in line for one of those spots.
And now with the injury to Peraza, it's hard, at least at this moment, to envision Cabrera not being on the opening day roster.
Boone loves his versatility. The Yankees know what they have in him. There are other candidates who have had better springs, but I also think a player can be a security blanket.
Well, you know what? That's going to help his spring. Wow, that is long gone. Oswaldo Cabrera with his first dinger of the spring, a jolt to right, and it's 1-0 Yankees. I think he wanted to give us something good to talk about from his spring production.
Ryan, just as we were talking about the Yankees knowing who he is, he gets a fastball from Dominguez up and in and just tattoos it. I used the phrase security blanket, and if you're Aaron Boone and you know what Cabrera can give you, even though the numbers haven't been exactly what you want them to be, I mean, that ball was just mashed. If you didn't see who hit it, you might think Juan Soto hit it.
Yeah.
That's how much that ball was crushed.
Destroyed. Which we saw a lot of that when he initially came up a couple years ago, before he struggled in the playoffs when he had won that starting job. And then obviously struggled throughout last season. But it's in there.
I think last year, Ryan, he got away from the swing that he was most comfortable with. And then toward the end, when he restored himself, it was more about contact.
Volpe nearly beats out that throw, but is out for the second out of the inning.
But you ask any manager in Major League history, when you have a guy who can play as many positions as Cabrera can play and can play them competently. As I mentioned, he'd never played first base before or started there. I know it's a spring training game, but the Yankees are putting him there just for another option, just for another look to see how he handles that assignment.
Soto goes the other way, foul. A little cooling off after that torrid start from Juan Soto. Oh, for no hits in his last 13 at bats. Get it out of the way before next Thursday.
We're still getting to know Soto, so I've never had the chance to ask him this question. And again, it's spring training. Paul O'Neill used to think that the 0 for 10s were going to become 0 for 20s, and that he was never going to get another hit. That's the way he approached those slumps.
Yeah, it'd be interesting how does Soto approach them as he rolls out to second. For the Yankees, get on the board. Oswaldo Cabrera trying to make sure he makes this roster. Goes out to right. It's 1-0 Yankees after 3. Einstein scoreboard. The Yankees a 1-0 lead on the Phillies. We get to chat now with the Yankees skipper, Aaron Boone. Aaron, Carlos Rodon has just looked sharp and command thus far today. What has stood out most to you through these 3 innings?
Yeah, I think he's done a good job with the fastball up and down today. Especially with some of these lefties having a little presence at the bottom, which helps out his slider a little bit more. Ooh, good pitch. But I feel like he's working quick and going to areas that he wants to get the ball to, and stuff looks pretty sharp today. Especially coming off his last one where, he was sharp. So hopefully get a little back-to-back here and get that pitch count up and keep on moving.
Aaron, you said at the outset of spring that you told Carlos essentially be yourself. And I think what that means, too, is that this guy's had some swagger when he's had success. How close is he to being that guy, the pitcher that the Yankees believed that they signed when they gave him that contract?
Yeah, I think with continued going out there and doing it, that swagger's going to hopefully get there to where we want it. What I've liked is the work. He has kept his nose down and just has sold out all winter and on into the spring about the way I put it is, I want you to focus on being ready to go every 5th or 6th day, and that's where your focus is. So whatever happens within a given game, it's like, man, keep focusing on the every day. All right, what's my next day? What's my next day? All in line to get ready for that next start. Feel like if he keeps kind of those blinders on and that focus, if he can go to the post all year long, I feel we'll look up and the results will be there. But that's what I want him to focus on, and he's done a good job of that so far.
All right, Aaron, we know with Judge, we saw him doing some defensive work, actually even spending time with Bernie Williams out in center field, and know he continues to not hit on the field but hit indoors. Where do you have Judge at right now, and how's the progress?
Good. Another good day today. He had velocity yesterday inside. I know he's working on the breaking ball machine today, so he's came through today good to go and should be in there coming out of the off day on Wednesday. So yeah, he's good, ready to go.
And sticking with injury updates, Aaron, what's DJ LeMahieu's status?
Yeah, so we got all the testing back, x-rays and the CT scan and everything, and so avoided breaking the foot there, which was good. So he's got a pretty good bruise though, and he saw Mates, the foot specialist, is down here, who's familiar with DJ and thinks he's dealt with foot-wise over the last few years. So got pretty good news there. It's just going to be a day-to-day thing, and he's still pretty sore, but moving around a lot better today. And we'll see. You know, we'll kind of reevaluate it in kind of every 2-3 days to see where we're at. You know, I definitely think it's going to cost him some days here, but with all the imaging we got and the news we got today, feel like we should be in a good spot. But it's, you know, with the foot and with DJ, like, we're not going to battle through anything. Like, and he and I have talked about it, about making sure he's, you know, in fully healed up, ready to go, so we don't have any compromising and then you leak into another injury or anything like that. So good news this morning, because the way he went down was a little bit concerning, especially as tough as DJ is and the way he kind of wears things. I knew right away, like, you know, he was in some pain and it was bothering him, and we're a little nervous going to get those x-rays, but looks like we dodged a bullet there.
Aaron, with that in mind, knowing that those bruises can be a little fickle, conceivable that he's not ready for next Thursday?
Oh, that's, I don't know that.
Okay.
Like, hopefully not. I mean, hopefully he is ready, but again, it's like, this is not something we're gonna, you know, yeah, I don't want him playing through anything, you know, just for the sake of being there on a certain day. So it may be a couple days, and maybe we'll just see. We'll kind of reevaluate every 2 or 3 days as we go. Yes.
Well, Aaron, that's going to do it for our chat. Another smooth inning from Rodon. We appreciate the time as always. Thanks, man.
All right, thanks, guys.
All right, that is Yankees skipper Aaron Boone joining us. 4 no-hit innings from Carlos Rodon, and some detailed updates from Aaron Boone. Spring training game on Yes as the Yankees take on the Pittsburgh Pirates under the lights at Steinbrenner Field. Live coverage starts at 6:30 on Yes and the Yes app. And Aaron Boone just told us that Aaron Judge should be returning to the lineup for that game after he got through hitting today and was good to go. Aaron Boone saying he should be in there after the off day and in on Wednesday, as Gregory Soto, the new pitcher for Philadelphia. Montefiore Einstein scoreboard, 1-0 Yankees. Meanwhile, Rodon has looked really sharp today.
Well, if you had a wish list as Aaron Boone coming into this game, seeing Carlos Rodon do exactly what he is doing, would be at the top of that list. And I like the way that Boone described his marching orders for Rodon. It sounds like a cliche, but focus on the next task.
Yeah.
If today is your day to throw on the side, be great at that and put the blinders on. And I think some of that is because of what Rodon has to deal with coming off a rough season. He's going to hear about that 6.85 ERA from last year until he comes out and shows that he's the pitcher who doesn't have a 6.85 ERA, that he's somebody who is reliable and competent at the top of that rotation.
So lean into the work, and regardless of what happens in any given outing, focus right back in on the work. He's looked good through these first 4. Average fastball velocity has been 94.6. He's got lots of swing and misses. Torres, second straight at bat. We've seen Torres fall behind in the count and then work it full. Last time he ended up working a walk. See what he does here against Soto. Turns on that, rips it down the left field line. That one is going to go to the wall. Gleyber Torres with a smash double as Brandon Marsh retrieves it, and the Yankees with the leadoff man in scoring position.
One more look at this 3-2 pitch. Soto comes in with the fastball. Torres is right on it. And as we've already discussed, Ryan, the ability to show more plate discipline, you're going to get yourself into better counts. You get into a 3-2 count, it's a spot where the pitcher leading off an inning, he doesn't want to walk you. He's going to throw you something you can do some damage with. I think the strides that Torres made as a hitter last year are so valuable leading into this year.
He's looked really good this spring as well. Contract year, of course, as Jack talked about earlier. Stanton takes a strike, 1-1. Also wanted to dive back into some of what Aaron Boone was talking to us about. So the Judge stuff, obviously good news to get him back in there on Wednesday, according to Boone. The LeMahieu stuff, Aaron Boone said they got good news on all the imaging and the meeting with the foot specialist. But you could tell there still was a little, I don't know if it's concern, but just hard to be sure about exactly how long it might be before it clears up. And also a real insistence on not rushing DJ LeMahieu back, making sure that he is totally and completely healed before getting back, because we've seen what it looks like when DJ LeMahieu tries to play through a foot injury.
Right, that's what stood out to me too, Ryan, is when Boone told us no break, no fracture, all the tests have come back positive. He's got a bruise on the foot, but then he said he's going to miss some time. He's going to be down for some days because they don't really want to mess around with that foot from somebody who's had some foot issues. As you mentioned, he talked about being...
Well, Stanton cracks that, hit a center field right at Rojas. Torres tags and goes to third. So a productive first out and a hard hit one off the bat of Stanton. Runner on third, one out.
Now that's a positive for Stanton. We're going to go back to LeMahieu in a second, but this is high velocity and this is Stanton being on it. Yes, it resulted in an out. You could see the sigh there from him, but Soto brings the heat, and I am going to tell you, Ryan, that is as impressive from a Yankee perspective when it's Soto throwing his fastball as the home run he hit against Espino the other day, because that was an 89-mile-per-hour fastball. Stanton needs to show that that high velocity is something he can catch up with again, so that loud out is meaningful.
There's Verdugo taking a strike.
Yeah, but they're not going to mess around with DJ LeMahieu. Yeah. That's what Boone was saying, and the Yankees have 10 days before opening day, and they're going to make sure that a guy they're going to rely on heavily this year is ready to go. And as you noted, Boone said they're not going to take any chances. We all point towards game one of the season and the fanfare and the pomp and circumstance. You've got 161 after that. So if you're not ready for that first game or that first series, there's still a lot of baseball you can contribute to.
Verdugo slaps a single to center field. Torres will score. The Yankee lead is 2-0 on the RBI single from Alex Verdugo.
Yeah, left on left. This is something You give Verdugo a lot of credit. I keep talking about Soto's velocity, but Verdugo staying right on that pitch, driving it to center field, and really solid at bat. And again, we should also point out, Ryan, we've got to let the next few days unfold, and let's see what happens with DJ LeMahieu.
Right, maybe he's back in there a couple.
Right, exactly. If he has some at bats within the next however many days it ends up being. But the positive from Boone's perspective, no break, no fracture. They just want to be mindful of who he is and what kind of injuries he's had in the past.
Here's the 0-1 to Wells. Wells lines that into right center. That's a base hit. Verdugo's going to turn and go to third. A single from Austin Wells, and the Yankees really hitting Soto hard here in the fourth.
Yeah, I talked about Soto's velocity. It's not fooling the Yankees this inning. He averaged 98 miles an hour with his sinker last year, 99 with his four-seamer, but the Yankees have been on his pitches this inning, starting with Torres.
A trip to the mound now. So Carlos Francisco warming in the bullpen for the Phillies. We've had 4 hard hit balls, though, off the bat of Yankee hitters in this fourth inning against Soto. The Wells stash really is strong. Think about just like what a mustache should look like. You know, Austin Wells kind of gets it done.
You're really leaning in on the facial hair, huh?
I am. Here goes Wells, headed for second, and that's rare. Austin Wells had gone many a year without getting thrown out until last season. And we saw a stolen base earlier in the spring. Here he gets thrown out.
So I talked to him about this in Tampa because, as you said, he had a streak of 55 out of 55 dating back to college in his college summer days. And then he got thrown out last year at AAA. It was in August of 23. And he was irked after the game that he got thrown out. And so he usually tries to pick his spots. And in that situation, the Phillies are the team that ends up winning that battle.
His reaction in the dugout afterwards. Yeah. Bewildered.
So, Ryan, real quickly, as we're watching this inning unfold and you see Verdugo hanging in there and getting a hit and Wells getting a hit, you look at Soto and his stuff and you say this guy must be murder on lefties. He gave up 10 hits in 88 plate appearances to lefties this year. So to see him give up back-to-back hits against lefties, even in a spring training game, that's a rare sight.
It's a great point. Just misses on Grisham. Grisham, actually a rare guy with reverse splits, hits lefties much better than righties. 2 of the last 3 seasons has had really strong numbers against left-handed pitching.
And then, as our Jeff Nelson has pointed out, the top hand thumb on the bat.
Yeah.
Where Grisham has his thumb on the bat is unlike anything you would ever teach a hitter or anything you've ever seen. But it's obviously a comfort level for him, and he's at the major league level doing it that way.
Throws away the sunglasses. It is so interesting, Jack. Can you think of anyone who you've seen with the thumb completely extended on the top of the bat like that?
Could I say Ty Cobb?
That's what that's the one example I was thinking.
That's about the only thing I'm thinking of is it.
Swinging there. Flies it into left for the final out of the fourth. But the Yankees get another run, an RBI single from Verdugo. We go to the fifth. Rodon back out there. The Yankees spring training presented by Ford, proud to be the official SUV of the New York Yankees. Top of the 5th inning at George M. Steinbrenner Field. Yankees a 2-0 lead. Justin Shackle standing by with Will Warren.
Hold on. We'll do it in a second.
Will, Sunday, the line on the surface doesn't look too pretty. 6 runs, 2 2/3. But the Yankees say you opened up a lot of eyes with how you compose yourself through a rocky first inning with some defensive issues behind you. What did you find out about yourself after that first inning?
Yeah, I mean, it is about bouncing back. It's about, you're going to have those rough starts here and there, and it's all about, can you keep your team in the game? And so that's what I try to do out there. Come back after sitting a little, had some thought on it. Sometimes not some good ones, but yeah, bounce back.
Matt Blake told me that you are your own harshest critic out there, but you find a way to stay even-keeled. What do you tell yourself in real time?
Yeah, absolutely. Got to look yourself in the mirror and be your hardest critic. So, yeah, just stay in, pitch for pitch. How am I going to get this guy out? Where are the strengths? You do that in the game plan beforehand, and how do you execute it when you get out there?
Now, when you were invited to big league camp before spring training began, did you envision still being around here on March 17th?
I did not. I knew I had the opportunity to do so. Keep telling myself, take it day by day. And here we are, still here, hanging on. So.
Off the news of Garrett Cole last week, when that happens, do you, does Clayton beat, or do others, do the antennas pop up and think, okay, there might be a spot for me on this major league roster?
I think, we had that envision coming into the camp. I hate that happened with Garrett. But I think we had already envisioned ourselves possibly making this team. I think that's what you have to keep your mindset at. That way you stay ready to roll, whether anything like that pops up. So,
do you know what the next step for you is for the rest of the spring?
I don't. Just kind of taking it day by day, like I said.
All right. On a much lighter note, Southeast Louisiana State guy, Mississippi born and bred. I read earlier in camp, you and Ron Guidry, you've been getting together, but he was a little insulted because did you pass up a chance to taste the jambalaya made by Ron Guidry? What happened there?
I didn't pass it up. I was a day late. Left it in the refrigerator in there. But I brought it home. 10 out of 10. Told him that. Had some gumbo yesterday. Also fantastic. So it was nice to have a little home-cooked meal, basically.
Awesome, Will. Awesome. Thanks for stopping by and chatting with us, and good luck to you the rest of the way.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you.
Back to you guys in the booth.
All right, Shaq, terrific stuff there. And Chef Guidry coming through for Will Warren, huh?
Yeah, sometimes it's frog's legs, and more importantly, how about Ron Guidry is cooking for you? That's pretty impressive. And I'm sure he's giving him advice about pitching, which is something we discussed earlier when we talked about the Yankee alums who are not only in camp, but who are very invested. You saw some of them hanging around and watching the spring breakout game the other day.
Yeah, that was really cool to see. And, the same way that the Yankees were impressed with the way Warren comported himself through some struggles on the mound, Jack, I've been impressed with the way he handles himself just in interviews. As Rodon, maybe a cutter there, gets the swing and miss from Hall for the second out.
Yeah, there's that rotation depth, and everyone wants to know who's going to be number 5. If you're talking about a dynamic arm, you're looking at Luis Heel. He's had a terrific spring. Luke Weaver was signed to a 1-year, $2 million deal to be a swing guy. Warren, I think, is ahead of Hampton and Beater. Even before spring training began, there were Yankee personnel who were saying to me, this guy is ready for the major leagues. Aaron Boone has talked about him being a 5-pitch pitcher. And even yesterday, Ryan, when he had to leave the game in the first inning, and because it's spring training, he got to go back in later, retires 8 of the next 10. And if you read Aaron Boone's quotes about him after the game, he talked about the importance of how you can learn more about a guy in those moments of distress. And Warren came back out and said, okay, I got punched in the face. Now I'm going to go back and do some damage myself. So I think Warren has really acquitted himself well and very much in that conversation for the number 5 spot.
Yeah, nice stuff, good demeanor, and you know, the Yankees have a few options that they do feel good about, and maybe they learn a little something ahead of schedule on one of these young arms that excites them.
Luis Gil has also had a tremendous spring. His last 2 outings, eight scoreless against 2 good teams.
Speaking of great outings, 96 from Rodon, his 5th strikeout. He is not allowed a hit through 5.
Your attention, please, ladies and gentlemen.
Introduction to the stand. Walk-off home run.
The greatest fans in the world.
First time here. Drop the ball. The Yankees win. Exclamation point. Closure Mountain. Where fantasy. 3,062. Cy Young Award. 22 again.
Oh, that's right, Juan Soto. 22 years of yes. Tomorrow, our official anniversary. Cadillac scoreboard, 2-4-0 for the Yankees, 0-0 for the Phillies. Carlos Rodon has been terrific. 5 no-hit innings thus far for the Yankees, as Kevin Smith will lead things off. 8-9-1 for the Yanks. Jack, where were you? 2002. You're at the New York Times covering all of baseball, including the Yankees.
I was in spring training with the Yankees leading up to Yes's birth, because I remember it being a big story. I did not cover TV media. Richard Sandomir, I believe, was covering that for the New York Times at the time, but I was in spring training, and you could see Yes getting itself underway. But interestingly enough, I also was covering some NCAA hoops at that time, so I broke away to do some March Madness. I remember a Duke Notre Dame game that I covered. So some hoops and some baseball.
You had my March
exactly
schedule.
Where was a young Ryan Ruocco in 2002?
You know, it was Austin Price, the new pitcher for the Phillies. In 2002, Kevin Smith ropes this into left field. Nice diving catch made by Marsh for the first out of the 5th. I actually was down at spring training. The Yes Network had this gathering event to celebrate its inauguration, and I got lucky enough to go. And that's me at 15 years old meeting one of my heroes, Derek Jeter, who could not have been kinder, could not have been more polite. A big thrill for my entire family. And I had spring training baseball at the time in high school and happened to overlap and got to go to this little Yes gathering to celebrate the start of the network.
I would just say 2 legends in that picture.
Remember also meeting a lot of the guys on the team during that visit. Jason Giambi, who couldn't have been kinder. Cabrera, who's already homered today, wraps that into the corner. Cabrera going for 2, and he's in there. A productive day for Oswaldo Cabrera. A homer and now a double.
The age-old question about spring training, right, Ryan? Do the stats matter? You see that pitch that Cabrera goes inside and gets it. Little 2-seam action. He stays on it, hits it into right field. They're all out there competing. So even when you're a veteran who has a spot locked up, you want to be able to put some numbers up. I think Cabrera is trying to remind the Yankees today of the value that he brings, not only the versatility, but what we're seeing from him offensively today. And coming into today, he had 6 hits in all of spring training, and he's got 2 in his first 2 at-bats today.
Here's Volpe. He's had an outstanding spring. 0 for 2 thus far today. Volpe fires that the other way. It goes through the legs of Hall into right field. Cabrera will score, and the Yankees lead is 3-0.
We've talked a lot about Volpe wanting to put the ball in play more often, wanting to cover more of the plate. That will probably be scored as an error, but obviously you put the ball in play, things can happen. Hall unable to corral that, and the Yankees have their 3rd run.
Here is Juan Soto. Volpe going, and Anthony Volpe is called out at second base. The naked eye, it looked like he had gotten in there.
Yeah, Volpe's reaction told you he thought he might be in. One more look at it.
Yeah, I have a feeling that during the season, close. I have a feeling during the season that gets reviewed and he's safe.
Yeah, there's no challenge system during spring training, but I tend to agree with you. Looked as if Volpe's hand did just get in there. Let's take one more look at it. Yeah, he was in there.
Now, you and I both have fighter pilot vision, so I figured we were correct on initial instinct. Soto rolls that over to second. He is retired for the final out of the bottom of the fifth. You get to see more Carlos Rodon. 5 no-hit innings thus far. Top of the 6th inning, Carlos Rodon have been outstanding. Economical, dominant. 5 strikeouts, is not allowed a hit, has walked just 1 on a close pitch. 10 swings and misses is most of the spring. And 2 pitches and 1 out here in the 6th as Grisham makes the call on the catch. Hey, watch MLB.tv and stream 250+ spring training games and every out-of-market game live or on demand. Blackout and other restrictions apply. Visit MLB.tv for details.
And Ryan, those swings and misses, that really resonates with me, because when Rodon is being the pitcher that he can be, he gets swings and misses on the fastball up. He gets swings and misses on what David Cohn would call the razor blade slider. And we're seeing a pitcher who is at his best today. Yep. This is Carlos Rodon at his best.
And you could just see the confidence in his tempo, too, as he's gone along this outing.
Yeah, through 68 in his last outing. We just showed Ian Hamilton up in the bullpen, so the Yankees trying to add a little bit on top of that. Whether he gets to 75 or 80 this inning, we'll see, or less if he gets some quick outs.
Jack, I know you're wondering about the last Yankees spring training no-hitter. As that skied into left, Verdugo trots in and hops into out number 2. The last Yankees spring training no-hitter, just for fun, back in 2017. Not quite when that man was manager, but how about this?
Aaron Boone predicted that he was going to do this, and this is a really special spring training scene.
Joe Torre takes the ball from Carlos Rodon after 5 2/3 no-hit innings. What a sight to see that legend back in uniform.
After months of hibernation.
Such a fun moment here at George M. Steinbrenner Field. Joe Torre coming on to take the ball from Carlos Rodon and then walking back to the Yankee dugout.
Asking Boone and Ausmus and everyone within earshot, how did I do? Joe, you've done that thousands of times. You passed the test. And Ryan, I thought it was interesting the fact that he took the ball from Rodon, who was born in December of '92. So that means that Rodon was 3 years old when Joe Torre took over as Yankee manager in '96. And Volpe and Cabrera and Wells, they weren't even born yet.
Yeah.
But they know who Joe Torre is, and pretty special spring training scene.
Here's Ian Hamilton. He's had a great spring after a great 2023. Terrific outing from Rodon. 5 2/3 no-hit innings. Here's the 1-2. Tapped weekly.
Might have been a little bit of a quick pitch there from Ian Hamilton, speeding things up on Marsh.
He did spend a year with Wandy Peralta out there in that pen. Swing and a miss. Got him with a Slambio. Hamilton strikes out the one batter he faces. Joe Torre back to work. Aaron Judge, number 62 bobblehead giveaway that was rained out has been rescheduled for Saturday, April 20th. So come see the Yankees take on the Rays, and the first 18,000 guests in attendance will receive an Aaron Judge number 62 bobblehead, the second of a two-part collectible set courtesy of TikTok. Tickets are going fast, so get yours today at Yankees.com. Well, Gleyber Torres has had two really good at-bats. The first one, he turned into a walk. The second, doubled and then came around to score. It'll be 3-4-5 in the Yankees order. Torres, Stanton, and Verdugo. The Yankees a 3-0 lead on the Phillies. Carlos Rodon, 5 2/3, no-hit innings. Ian Hamilton strikes out the final batter at the top of the 6th. Pinto, the new pitcher for Philadelphia, and that one till tying in 1-0. See the numbers for Torres this spring. Terrific. On the heels of a really strong season last year. Torres rolls it to short. One down.
Had a conversation with Gleyber in spring training, Ryan, and I talked to him about hitting the opposite way, and so many observers and former players, Paul O'Neill, David Cohn, John Flaherty, our whole crew talk about you're at your best when you hit the ball the opposite way, and Gleyber smiled and said, I know, but then he said, I also like to pull the ball.
Yeah.
And then that day he pulled a home run in the game.
Yes.
So of course I had to joke around with him and say, now you have to do interviews before the game every day because you hit a home run that day.
That's right. Stanton grounds it hard and through into left field, a base hit. Some productive swings from Giancarlo Stanton in this game. Smoked the ball to center last time up. Was right at Rojas, and here's singles through the left side.
Stanton's swing, it's upper body. You see he takes advantage of pitcher mistakes. Right there, it's just staying on that pitch, finding a hole. That's not how Giancarlo Stanton typically makes his money. He's a guy who makes his living hitting the ball over the fence, but putting the ball in play, we talked about it earlier, making contact, good things can happen.
Jack, how about Verdugo and what he brings to this Yankee offense?
I think there's a feistiness about Verdugo. He's a contact hitter. He's a guy who will work at bats. You and I discussed it earlier, hitting from the left side. It's something that has been lacking with the Yankee offense. Only about a quarter of their home runs came from the left side. And when you think that you play half of your games at Yankee Stadium, you want more firepower from the left side. And then as a corner outfielder, he's very solid. So I think the Yankees, as they were mapping out their plans in the offseason, they saw a spot for Verdugo. They saw a fit. They thought he could improve their offense and, as I said, be steady defensively.
Grounds this one into center field, a base hit. Second hit of the game for Verdugo. And the Yankees with first and second, one out.
One more look at it. Second time today, Verdugo just taking the ball right back through the middle for a base hit. Phil Cuzzy, second base umpire, just getting out of the way of that. And the Yankees have a couple of base runners for Wells.
Wells singled his last time up. Takes a big rip there. 0-1. You know, we were talking about the stolen base numbers for Wells, who got caught stealing after that single after his last at bat. As he tomahawks that into right center field. Over to make the catch is Rojas. Stanton will tag and head to third. He is there safely. 2 down. on the fly out from Wells. But to be specific about Wells as the base stealer, as our Connor Foley reminds us, 7 for 7 at the University of Arizona, 8 for 8 in the Cape Cod League, 1 for 1 in the Arizona Fall League, and 39 for 40 in the minors in his career. Stolen base attempt.
But now he's had a couple of times in spring training where he's been cut down. So
right.
It's that streak had been so successful. But what that tells you, Ryan, is that it's all about instincts and smarts, because he's obviously not the fleetest of foot. Very few catchers are, but he has picked his spots perfectly. And he thought he had one earlier in the game, but did not work out.
One-0 to Grisham. Change up, wiggles away, 2-0.
I spoke to Grisham in Tampa. He talked about trying to make sure his mindset is better this year. He has thought across the last couple of years that he has sometimes been his own worst enemy. He's gotten into a slump, and then he's let it become a mental thing, and it's escalated.
Works a 4-pitch walk here. And along those lines, Jackie, he talked also about sometimes allowing too many voices to have a say on his swing when he's in one of those slumps, and if he's not in the right place mentally, he's more susceptible to that.
Yeah, there's a lot of information that comes your way as a major league player, and some players want 100% of it and can thrive in that manner. Some might thrive with 20% of it, and I think that is what you were talking about with Grisham. He thought that maybe there were times it was just too much information coming his way, and he wanted to make sure that at the end of the day, he's the guy up there swinging the bat. He's the guy who has to feel comfortable in that swing. I know from talking to Paul O'Neill, great respect for all of his hitting coaches, but he also said there was a way that I knew I wanted to hit, and at the end of the day, I'm in there trying to hit a 95-mile-per-hour fastball. I've got to be comfortable with my approach.
0-2 on Smith. Ooh. Smith gets plunked, and a run will score. It's 4-0 Yankees.
Yeah, Pinto trying to come inside, but he parks that pitch a little too far inside, and that is an painful RBI for Smith, the kid from upstate New York, who, like you, grew up loving Derek Jeter. Right under the 7 and the 4, Smith gets hit.
We talked about where he lived. It was kind of a split between Yankees fans and Red Sox fans, because he was about 2.5 hours, 2 hours and 45 minutes from New York and from Boston, but he was on the Yankee side of things.
He was born on July 4th, 1996. So the year he was born, the Yankee won a World Series title. A lot of defense from Smith. He's got some pop in the bat. Can play shortstop, third base. He's also played some right field and some left field and second base in the major leagues. Mostly third and short, though.
Cabrera smokes that, but one hop to second. And that will end the inning. The Yankees tack on one more run. We go to the 7th, 4-0 Bombers. Hey, next Thursday is opening day. Make sure you're locked into Yes as Aaron Judge and the Yankees kick off the regular season on the road against the Houston Astros. Don't miss the exciting debut of Juan Soto with complete pregame coverage beginning at 3 o'clock on Yes and the Yes app. So excited for that. I cannot believe it's already here, but fired up for next Thursday, Yankees Astros. Montefiore Einstein scoreboard. Yankees 4, Phillies nothing. Top of the 7th, Jonathan Loaisiga. His second outing of the spring. And deals a strike. See the numbers in limited appearances last year as he dealt with a right elbow injury. Thursday against the Tigers, went an inning and 2/3, gave up 3 hits, 1 run through 27 pitches. Yankees have talked about potentially using him in that Michael King multiple inning role. Of course, our first experience with Loaisiga at the big leagues, we were watching him as a starter before he became this reliable arm in the bullpen. And he does have electric stuff. Strike 3.
And Ryan, he clearly has the stuff to be what Michael King was. One more look at this. I mean, that fastball is just perfectly dotted. His sinker runs up there about 98 miles an hour. He throws it 70% of the time. He'll work in a curveball about 15% of the time, and then also a changeup. But you're right, as you're looking for a pitcher to give you multiple innings, Loaisiga can be one of them.
Deep to right center field. That ball is gone. Cody Clemens goes yard. The first hit of the game for Philadelphia. And it's a 4-1 Yankee lead. That one just took off.
Yeah, we talked about Clemens, and he's having a good spring for the Phillies. One more look at this pitch. Yeah, that just stayed up. That was a breaking pitch that was up in the zone. Loaisiga trying to start Clemens off with something with a little wrinkle to it. Sometimes you speed a hitter's bat up there. I think that's what happened in that situation.
When Loaisiga's healthy, he's effective. We've seen that, just to go back to the bigger picture combo, we've seen that throughout his major league career.
Yeah, batters don't want to have to face Jonathan Loaisiga. That tells you all you need to know about his effectiveness and who he can be for the Yankees.
Lifted in the air to left. Verdugo battling the sun, and he can't make the catch. Bohm is going to end up at second. Some wind and a whole lot of sun now.
Yeah, it's an outfielder's worst nightmare. It looked as initially Verdugo turned the wrong way, then he collected himself, and by the time he collected himself, unable to get in the perfect position to make that play.
Giving him a rep of what's to come at Yankee Stadium in that left field on sunny days.
That was scored as a double.
Broken bat. Roller to second. Torres in the backhand. Smooth. 2 down. Hey, support America's military and first responder heroes. Donate $11 a month to the Tunnel to Towers Foundation at T2T.org.
Right, just emphasizing the point you made earlier. If you look at Loaisiga's stats in 2021, 57 games, 70 2/3 innings. He had a 2.17 ERA, 9-4 record. Struck out almost a batter an inning. You can make an argument he was the best reliever in the American League that season.
Yeah.
So if Loaisiga can be there for an entire season, he mentioned it this spring, he's got to stay injury free. What an asset he is to have in that bullpen.
The 0-1 to Hall. You see the way the ball just dives from Loaisiga. An outstanding sinker. 1-1 here on Hall. Got in on Hall with 98, 1-2.
In that multi-inning role, the Yankees have talked to Loaizaga about making sure after he pitches a couple innings, there'll be a couple of days of rest worked in there. That's the way that they used Michael King before he became a starter at the end of last season.
Hit in the air to center. Grisham drifts back and ends. Megan Allen ends the inning. We're going to hang here, though, for God Bless America.
Ladies and gentlemen, today the New York Yankees are recognizing all the brave men and women of our armed forces. So please direct your attention to the Yankees' first base dugout and welcome Sergeant Scott Sutek of the United States Marine Corps. Sergeant Sutek served our country from 1988 to 1993 as a radar technician deployed as part of Desert Storm and Norway during the NATO exercises. The New York Yankees welcome Sergeant Scott Sutek of the Marines as our military honoree of the game and say thank you to all of our brave men and women for their service and sacrifices for our nation. Now, ladies and gentlemen, please remain standing and remove your caps for the playing of God Bless America.
Fans. It really doesn't matter what your politics are. The military, these people are serving our country.
I consider myself the luckiest man on the face of the earth.
Playing in Yankee Stadium is the best thing that could ever happen to a ball player.
It's a huge honor to put this uniform on.
World champions. Back on top. This is the Yankees being the Yankees.
Let's check out the Acura game summary. 1-2-1 for the Phillies, 4-7-0 for the Yankees. Strom started it. Was good in his one inning of work. Carlos Rodon, terrific today. 5 2/3 no-hit innings. And Oswaldo Cabrera has cracked a double and a solo homer. Max Lazar, the new pitcher for the Phillies. You see his numbers in high and AA last year as Anthony Volpe steps in and takes strike one. Fourth at bat of the day for Volpe. Getting to be that time of spring, Jack, where you got to get that fourth at bat sometimes now.
You want to simulate game conditions the closer you get to opening day. We've been promoting our opening day. It's 10 days away. Astros against Yankees on the YES Network, and every player is different, but I think in those last 7 to 10 days, you want to pile up the at-bats. I keep referring to Paul O'Neill because I did write a book about hitting with him, and he said in that last week he wanted to treat it as if it was the regular season. Get your 4 or even 5 at-bats in and know that everything that you wanted to feel about your swing feels good going into opening day.
Everybody,
Volpe flies that into right. One down. I feel like Paul is also the perfect person to reference because we know he was very particular about routine and what it would take to feel locked in and right going into opening day.
Lots of swings.
Yeah.
Ryan, there were games where O'Neill told me that after taking BP on the field, for instance, at Yankee Stadium, if he didn't feel he had his A swing, and this is that old Yankee Stadium, obviously, he would run down to the cage and take another 20, 30 swings, just wanting to feel that he was precisely and exactly where he needed to be. Every hitter is different.
Yep.
So, some hitters might not be as obsessive, but I think a lot of them are. The other thing that Paul told me, which will bring Tino and Derek Jeter into the discussion, is that there were days where Joe Torre, say day game after a night game or something like that, would say, we're not going to hit on the field today. Well, O'Neill, Tino, and Jeter loved hitting on the field. They'll hit in the cage, but they wanted to get the feel of being out on the field.
Yeah.
So depending on whose number was up or who hadn't done it the previous time, one of them would knock on Joe's door and say, can we hit on the field today? And I said, how often did Joe acquiesce? He said he understood the creature comforts and the habits of hitters, so a lot of times he said sure.
And in case you're just joining us, we got to see Joe Torre today make a pitching change. He was the man who walked out to the mound to take the ball from Carlos Rodon in the 6th inning, which was just so heartwarming, nostalgic, memorable. Cued. This one is fair, and it's going to be a base hit for Juan Soto.
So there's the madness of spring training. You go 0 for 15 and that's your base hit. And here's what you were referring to, Ryan. Nostalgic. That's a perfect word. And pretty neat that Rodon gets to exchange some comments with Joe Torre. And then everyone else on the mound, all ears.
Saying, how'd I do? And number 6.
I started to talk about I said the madness of spring training. I kind of meant the madness of hitting. Soto hits the ball so hard most of the time. He's sitting there with an 0 for 3 today. He's 0 for 15. It's spring training. And then how does he get the base hit? He just cues the ball to third base. I'm sure Juan Soto, who hits the ball as hard as anyone in baseball, will have a chuckle over that. We've already seen how great he has been this spring training, just barreling pitches up and hitting line drives all over the field.
The 0-2 to Torres. Check swing. It did not go. Soto out of the game, gets a pinch runner. Alexander Vargas pinch runs.
One more thought on Soto from O'Neill. Doesn't think that Soto should do anything different at Yankee Stadium. You think about a hitter at Yankee Stadium, you're a left-handed hitter, should you make some adjustments to try and take advantage of that porch in right field? Paul said absolutely not. His power translates all over the field. Don't try to change anything. Be the hitter who you have been, and the home runs are going to go, because when he gets a hold of one, it doesn't necessarily have to go to right field. We've seen his power. And then, Ryan, we've also seen this. 100-foot cue ball of a grounder, and then a smile. And the ultimate cliche. It'll look like a line drive in the scorebook,
Yeah,
right?
that's right. Strike 3. Torres down looking. A high strike 3. 2 down.
But regarding Soto at Yankee Stadium, when you do dig in on that and where does he hit a lot of his home runs, he has already said he's not going to try and change anything.
Yeah.
And O'Neill mentioned that when he came to the Yankees in '93, both Stick Michael, who was the GM at the time, and Don Mattingly said, don't change who you are.
You think about the success O'Neill then had going the other way. And sticking to that true hitter's approach. Yeah, I think you watch Juan Soto hit throughout his career thus far, and that's probably the best thing you could say, right? Do not change a thing. Stanton singled his last time up, came around to score, also lined out to center the plate appearance before that. One and two on Stanton. Skied to right. Stevenson there to end the inning. We go to the 8th. Yankees leading at 4-1. Top of the 8th inning at George M. Steinbrenner Field. Ryan Ruocco, Jack Curry, Justin Shackle with you. Cody Poteet into the game for the Yankees in the top of the 8th. After Carlos Rodon threw 5 2/3 no-hit innings, and Hamilton struck out the only batter he faced. Jonathan Loaisiga yielded a solo home run, nothing more. See the numbers for Poteet. The Yankees have been really happy with this spring. Ground ball to third. One down. Let's send things over to Justin.
Yeah, you have Cody Poteet in the game, Ryan, and it's interesting because Matt Blake mentioned his name when I asked him this morning about the 5th starter conversation. He said, hey, without naming names, has anyone separated themselves from the pack for that spot? And he said not really, but he did list Poteet in that group still with Luis Heel and Will Warren and Clayton Beeter as well. You have Luke Weaver in the mix. So he thought Warren, like you heard from earlier, he did that nice job yesterday responding, collecting himself. But it's interesting here, Poteet working a single inning, presumably, here in the top of the 8th.
Yeah, right, Jack. Could that be a role for him as some sort of swing man in the bullpen as well, Jack, especially given that there will be at least one extra spot open when the Yankees break camp because of the Tommy Kahnle injury, as that's flicked into left field for a base hit.
Yeah, the Yankees have talked about Kahnle not starting the season with the team. So if you're handicapping that bullpen situation, you look at the guarantees: Holmes, Loaisiga, Hamilton, Caleb Ferguson, Victor Gonzalez, Luke Weaver has a guaranteed deal. So then there are a couple of openings in the bullpen, and as we've talked about, there's a spot for a 5th starter. So Justin just talked about Poteet. You have Nick Birdie. You have Ron Marinaccio. There's the projected bullpen right there. We mentioned Warren, Heel, and Beeter. So a couple of position battles still unfolding at the end of spring training, and I think the Yankees have some good choices. Heel has been dynamic.
Yeah.
I mean, throwing a fastball that reaches 100 with a great slider and working on his changeup. And then, as we discussed and Justin has talked about, Warren bounced back yesterday nicely, and the Yankees keep talking about his 5-pitch repertoire and how much that impresses them.
Shaq, how about Tommy Kahnle and what's going on with him?
Yeah, Ryan, Tommy Kahnle figures to be an important part of this bullpen when he is an active pitcher for the Yankees. He threw a 20-pitch live BP session against 2 minor leaguers yesterday with Ben Warfed doing the catching. Bullpen coach Mike Harkey was watching. He threw his full pitch mix, reported no issues afterward, and like you guys were mentioning, coming back from the shoulder inflammation that forced his throwing program to start later than desired. Aaron Boone said Kahnle may need 3 to 4 live BP sessions before he gets into a real spring game, and that might be difficult to do with about a week left in spring training. So likely that Kahnle would be an active player for the Yankees shortly after the regular season begins.
All right, Justin, good stuff. Thank you, sir. Stevenson lines a single to center. First and second with 1 out here in the 8th.
So all mine goes to investment, inland investment bureau. All 1099 income, I write everything I buy, it goes on my business card, my business cards, my account.
Breaking ball for a strike, 0-1. Otto Kemp. See his numbers at single and double A season ago.
Ryan, we talk about who might fill out the last couple of bullpen spots or the final rotation spot. But the point that we should reiterate, the Yankees, like every major league team, will end up using a lot of pitchers this year. The Yankees used 32 pitchers last year. Now, that includes a couple of position players. Donaldson and IKF pitched in games.
Floated into shallow right. That's a fair ball. Bounces into the crowd. A ground rule double that will score a run. It's a 4-2 game, and the Phillies threatening for more. Second and third, one out.
Yeah, Rojas with a valiant effort on this, and even got a glove on it at the end, but touched it in foul territory, and it'll go for a two-base hit. And then on average last year, Ryan, just closing out the pitching point, major league teams used 13 starters on average last year. So you're going to need a lot of arms. So someone who might not start the season with the team still has a chance to be a contributor during the season.
It's such an interesting and significant number, Jack, because I think anybody who's looking at a rotation would say, like, yeah, you know, you're probably going to need your 6th or 7th starter, maybe an 8th. 13, you know, that is not the number that would come to mind, but that's how deep things get.
I think the opener has obviously impacted that. Those count as starts when you use an opener during the season. But you're right, it's rare these days to see an organization that, for instance, goes through an entire season using only 5 starters.
Whoa, that takes a weird spin. Everybody's safe. A run will score, and it's first and third. One out in a 4-3 game. What an odd spin.
De La Cruz took one odd spin, and then Poteet just muffed it, unable to corral it. Anyone who's spent time at spring training, Ryan, knows that they perform a drill or an exercise called PFPs. It's pitchers fielding practice.
Yeah.
And something like that gets done over and over and over again. So when there is a mistake, it's problematic because it's supposed to be as routine as making a layup.
Not a left-handed running 20-footer.
No. As Kyrie Irving produced yesterday on your watch with your vocals delivering the buzzer beater.
The craziest game winner I've ever seen. That's in there for a strike. 0-2.
You covered Kyrie. Ever see him shoot with his left hand? I mean, I know he's probably taking a layup with his left hand. Not from that distance.
Yeah. Like, he's as creative as any player I've ever seen, but that was next level. Popped up into shallow left. Catch is made. Runner will hold. 2 down. Boy, it must be a tough sun-wind combination, especially in left field, because we've seen all kinds of trouble today.
Yeah, good job by Jones to collect that. Vargas, the shortstop, wasn't going to be able to make that play. But Ryan, I'm obsessed with this pitching point. The 2023 Blue Jays had 4 starters who made 30 or more starts. It shows you how rare that is. Kikuchi, Gausman, Berrios, and Bassett all made 30 or more starts. And Manoah made 19. And had he not flamed out, he might have made more. But it's rare when you have that few collection of starters. The Blue Jays only used 6 all last year.
Well, last year, teams averaged 41 starts made by pitchers who weren't in their top 5 in starts. Talking about a quarter of your games.
A quarter of the games are going to be started by someone, right, that you did not deem at the beginning of the season one of your best 5. So that's a big chunk of of what you're trying to accomplish.
Chopped to third. Burt across the diamond in time for the out. So the Phillies push across 2 runs, but no more as Poteet gets out of it. Bottom of the 8th inning. The Yankees a 4-3 lead on the Phillies. Trying to close things down at George M. Steinbrenner Field. We had about a half an hour rain delay at the start of this one. But we're so pumped you all stayed. And here we are, a game that's had a lot of things to like if you're a Yankees fan. Carlos Rodon, tremendous, 5 2/3, no-hit innings. Gleyber Torres stayed hot. A double, a run scored. He had Oswaldo Cabrera, a double and a homer. Alex Verdugo, a couple of hits and a ribby.
And Jomani Jones at the plate. He's a second baseman, but the Yankees playing him in left field today. Show some versatility, get yourself noticed. Made a really nice play at second base when I was down in Tampa several days ago. He made a nice play in left field there. And Ryan, the athleticism should not surprise us.
Yeah.
His dad played in the NFL. His brother played in the NFL. And he had another brother who played in arena football.
Said, I know you asked him why baseball instead of football. Sounded like that was just the game that spoke most to his soul.
I loved his answer, right? He had a lot of football players in and around his house, but baseball was attractive to him.
3-2 here on Jones.
Yankees picked him up from the Brewers. He had a cup of coffee at the major league level with the Brewers last year.
And he works a walk here. Yankees spring training on Yes is presented by your local Ford stores. There's an engine that drives this team. Ford is proud to be the official SUV of the Yankees. Ben Rortvedt getting the at-bat here. Runner on first, nobody out. Jack, can I take a circuitous route to an interesting nugget from that was a little more pertinent earlier in the game, but I think it's interesting.
Bring it.
So we were talking about spring training no-hitters, and then we had this amazing moment with Joe Torre going out to take the ball from Carlos Rodon, who threw 5 2/3 no-hit innings. The Yankees have since given up 5 hits, but we were wondering, when's the last time the Yankees had a spring training no-hitter, just because it's fun, right? It was March 17th, 2017. Before that, you have to go back to March 14th of 1983. The pitchers were Ron Guidry and Dale Murray. And on our Yes Network chat, Troy Benjamin, the lead game producer for the New York Yankees, chimed in and said, that game in Fort Lauderdale, I was into that game. It was on WPIX. It was a night game. Troy just has the sickest sports memory of all time. And so James Smythe went back and looked at a game story from it. Billy Martin after the game said, I learned that when a game is on television back home, I gear up for it. And Bucks manager Chuck Tanner said, it was all my fault. I took the hit sign off.
Was it a night game? Was it definitely a night game?
It was a night game.
Boy, Troy's, wow. That's amazing. That's quite a memory. Do you have the innings breakdown for me, Ryan? How many innings did Gator go?
You know, I don't have the innings breakdown, but oh, wait, yes, I do. 5 innings for Gator, 4 for Murray.
Wow. That's a cool nugget. Well worth bringing that up this inning.
Well, good. Speaking of the man who inspired us bringing it up, Carlos Rodon caught up with Justin Shackle a moment ago. The interview of the day brought to you by your local Ford stores.
All right, Carl, let's start backwards. What did Joe Torre tell you when you gave him the ball to end your day?
He didn't say much, but I just talked to some of the media, and I was just thinking back. you know, it was the 6th, and I had 2 outs. I think I had like 3 pitches left to throw, and I was like, man, I got this lefty. Like, why did they come to get me? And I look up, and I'm like, oh, it's Joe Torre. I probably shouldn't say much. I probably should just hand over the ball. I was a little caught off guard. I was like, oh, okay. Yeah, it's the time to just give it away. But it was pretty cool. You know, that's everybody knows who Joe Torre is. Historic career as a manager, and even as a player, I believe. You know, a Yankee legend. So it was pretty cool to have that moment.
I know it's spring training, but 5-2 no-hit innings is 5-2. There's no-hit innings. Did you know that you hadn't allowed a hit?
You know, I really wasn't thinking about that. I was just, you know, Austin calls the pitches, and I throw them to the glove. That's kind of what was going on.
What did you like about the way you threw the ball today?
Yeah, I think barring the lineup, a lot of lefties. I think we featured a lot of fastball slider. Just kind of working on that glove side fastball, trying to get to that spot versus the lefties and just refine that. Yeah, just try to get ahead, stayed ahead, and got quick outs and made it through, you know, 6 ups.
You know, the last 2 starts, how would you assess how you're able to maneuver that fastball around the zone?
Yeah, you know, a lot more confidence now in the heater and with the command of it. So, you know, it makes it easier when I can go up, go away with it, go in with it, and then featured some cutters to get them off heaters, sliders in the zone, so get some swings on that. So overall, it's good.
What's it like for you on the mound when you're trying to calculate when is the ideal time to maybe be in attack mode with those secondary pitches, the cutters, the changeups, versus just featuring them?
You know, obviously ahead, 1-0 counts, 1-0 counts, 0-0 counts, even counts. You know, first pitch at AB. If it's a cutter, we're going to be in the zone with it. 1-0 cutter in the zone with it. Changeup, try to be in the zone with it. Curveball, same thing. You know, then you get ahead in a 1-2 count. You know, even sometimes 2-2 counts, we're trying to get that, you know, strike the ball pitch. Now I'm giving you too much information. Hopefully they don't, you know, get on this. But, yeah, 1-2, 0-2, try to put them away, strike the ball pitches, fastballs above the zone, sliders below the zone, you know, all that.
We'll keep it less open-ended for you. Are you pleased with where those secondary pitches are?
Yeah, definitely closer. I thought today was pretty good. Just a little more work on some changeups. Missed all changeups today. Threw one good curveball, so refining those 2 pitches hopefully in this next start, and just work our way to the season.
One more here. Other time you're working with Austin Wells. Compared to this time last year, what type of progress has he made behind the plate? What do you notice the most?
Yeah, you can tell just the glove, the pitch receiving is it's grown. He's grown a lot. He puts a lot of time into his craft. You can tell since for his first start in Houston when I threw to him until now. You can really see the growth he's made.
5 2/3 no-hit innings. Have a day. Thank you.
Thank you.
Back to you guys in the booth.
Well, outstanding conversation with Carlos Rodon from Justin Shackle as we move to the 9th. George M. Steinbrenner Field. Cody Poteet trying to get the final 3 outs here. Yankees holding on to a 4-3 lead. That one's rolled to short. And the play made by Vargas after Burt dove in front of him. 1 out. Oh, how about this little Fordham University connection here? Yeah, that's right. Today we have Jack, you, Justin, me, of course, Michael K., our fearless leader for so many years, a WFUV and Fordham man himself. You see, Shaq, his hair was a little different back then.
So was mine.
Yeah.
So was yours.
Just a little. I had it.
I was not expecting that graphic, but I was studying it like I was studying the Dead Sea Scrolls. That was pretty cool to get that flashback. Michael's flashback flashes back the most, mine the second most. Who's older, you or Justin?
I'm slightly older than Justin.
Okay. That was cool.
I'm November 86. He's February of 87.
Wow.
Look at Shaq at Bruce Beck's camp. That mop.
Primetime player right there. Fordham and WFUV.
Yeah.
With the pipeline to Yankee broadcasting. We all have to be very, very proud of our connection to Fordham.
And we are. I'm so glad we have that picture, because that's what the Shaq I met was not that was my senior year, the initial picture we saw, and Shaq's junior year. But The shaggy hair version of the second picture of Justin is the one that I met. That's rolled slowly to Vargas. 2 down. This copyrighted telecast is presented by authority of the New York Yankees. It may not be reproduced or retransmitted in any form, and the accounts and descriptions of this game may not be disseminated without the express written consent of the New York Yankees. So Poteet, after a few shaky moments, including defensively in the 8th, 1 out away from locking down the win here in the 9th. And the Phillies extend the game as Rincones lines a single to left.
We have potentially only one more batter here, Ryan, but real quickly on Justin's interview with Rodon.
Yeah.
Just Rodon talking about sequencing and when he might try to use secondary pitches and which counts, and just taking a little inside scoop there.
It was really interesting. A great game from Rodon, and the Yankees win it 4-3, the final. And speaking of Carlos Rodon, he is our Cadillac player of the game.
Yeah, it was dominance today, Ryan. It was mostly fastball, slider. We did see some cutters, but we also saw this. No Phillies got any hits. We saw the most swings and misses that Rodon has generated this spring. It was 10, 5 2/3 no hit. He struck out 5 and continues to build that confidence that earlier in the spring he said he needed to find.
3-6-1 for the Phillies, 4-8-1 for the Yankees. A tidy 2 hours and 15 minutes. Rodon the win. Son of Roger, Cody Clemens a homer, and you see Rodon how sharp he was. That'll do it from George M. Steinbrenner Field. Special thanks to producer Mike Bedvin, director Michael Cooney, Mike Webb, Jared Boschnack, and our executive producer is Mr. John J. Filippelli. Join us again Wednesday as the Yankees take on the Pirates from George M. Steinbrenner Field in Tampa, Florida. Coverage begins at 6:30 on the YES Network. Once again, the final score, the Yankees 4 and the Phillies 3. So, for fellow Fordham Rams Jack Curry and Justin Shackle, I'm Ryan Rucco saying so long, everybody. Have a good one.